You know, South Africa is a beautiful country. We've got the mountains, the beaches, the braais. We even gave the world vuvuzelas. You're welcome, by the way, but there's this one thing, a really big thing that we don't talk about enough at those braais. It's like that awkward uncle everyone tries to ignore, but he's right there taking up a lot of space. I'm talking about inequality, my friends. It's massive. We're talking world record levels of inequality. It's like one person has a whole swimming pool full of cool drink and the next person has just a teaspoon and it's probably just melted ice. This isn't just about some people having fancy cars and others not. It's much deeper than that. This huge gap between the rich and the poor, it's a real party pooper for the whole country. Think about it. If only a few people have all the opportunities, how is everyone else supposed to climb up? It's like trying to win a race when some people start at the finish line and you're starting way back carrying a baby elephant. That baby elephant is the lack of access. Lack of access to good schools, good healthcare, good jobs. So, socio-economic mobility, that fancy term for moving up in life, it gets stuck. People are born into a situation and it's incredibly hard to change it, no matter how hard they work. It's a system that's not working for most of us. The World Bank, those clever people who look at numbers all day, they point this out. They say this high inequality is a major roadblock. It stops us from growing in a way that includes everyone. It's like trying to build a strong house, but you only use the best bricks for one wall and leave the others with mud and sticks. That house isn't going to be strong, is it? It's not going to protect everyone inside, and that's what's happening here. The economy might grow a little, but if that growth only benefits the people already at the top, then poverty isn't going anywhere fast. It's like adding more water to that swimming pool, but the teaspoon still only gets a drop. So this inequality, it's not just a statistic, it's a daily reality for millions of South Africans. It affects where you live, what you eat, what your kids can dream of. It's the difference between having a safety net and walking a tightrope with no net at all over a pit of hungry crocodiles. Okay, maybe not crocodiles, but you get the idea. It's a serious challenge, and it's one of the main reasons why poverty still has such a tight grip on our nation. We need to figure out how to share the cool drink, or at least make sure everyone has a decent-sized cup, not just a teaspoon. It's about fairness, it's about opportunity, and it's about building a South Africa that works for all its people. Now, while we're looking at our own backyard and seeing the challenges, it's also important to zoom out a bit. You know, like when you're looking at a family photo and you realize everyone's got that one uncle. Well, in Southern Africa, extreme poverty is that unwelcome relative showing up in many countries. It's not just a South African problem, though we have our own unique flavor of it. The whole region, sub-Saharan Africa, is dealing with some heavy stuff. We're talking about a huge chunk of the world's poorest people living right here. It's like our continent is carrying a backpack full of rocks, while other continents are jogging along with those fancy lightweight ones. The numbers are quite something, and not in a good way. In 2024, sub-Saharan Africa had about 16% of all the people in the world. But, and this is a big but, it had 67% of all the people living in extreme poverty. That means living on less than $2.15 a day. Imagine trying to survive on that. That's less than the price of a fancy coffee in some places. 2/3 of the world's extreme poor are in our neighborhood. And if you add in countries that are fragile or dealing with conflict, that number jumps to 3/4. It's a staggering reality, and it makes you think about the bigger picture. And it's not just about not having money, it's also about hunger. You hear these scary stats, like 1 in 5 people in Africa facing hunger in 2023. That's a lot of empty stomachs, a lot of parents worrying about how to feed their kids. Projections for 2030 suggest that over half of the world's chronically undernourished people will be in Africa. That's a future we really don't want. Between June and August 2024, nearly 50 million people in West and Central Africa faced serious food shortages. While these numbers aren't all specifically for South Africa, they paint a picture of the regional crisis. It's like a storm raging nearby. Even if it's not directly over your house, you feel the wind and see the dark clouds. So while we focus on fixing our own problems in South Africa, we also need to remember we're part of a bigger family, a family that's facing some serious headwinds. The World Bank even projects that by 2030, hundreds of millions globally will still be in extreme poverty, and a big chunk of them will be in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a tough situation, and it shows that the fight against poverty needs big solutions, both at home and with our neighbors. We're all in this together, really. It's like trying to put out a fire. You can't just focus on your own room if the whole building is at risk. We need a coordinated effort, a regional plan. All right, so we know inequality is a beast and poverty is widespread. But why? What's one of the biggest reasons people can't escape poverty? Well, a big part of it comes down to jobs, or rather the lack of good jobs. You hear it all the time on the streets. Where are the jobs, Brew? It's a question that echoes through our communities, from the cities to the rural areas. People want to work, they want to earn a decent living, provide for their families and contribute. But the opportunities just aren't there for so many. It's like a huge talent show where most of the contestants can't even get on stage. Improving labour incomes is key. That's what the experts say. And frankly, it's common sense, isn't it? If people earn more from their work, they have a better chance of pulling themselves out of poverty. But it's not just about any job. We need better jobs. Jobs that pay a fair wage, offer some security, and provide safe working conditions. Too many people are stuck in insecure, low-paying work, or they can't find any work at all. This is a massive challenge for South Africa. We need to create an economy that doesn't just grow, but creates these kinds of decent employment opportunities for everyone, not just a lucky few. To get these better jobs, we need to invest in a few crucial things. Think of it like baking a cake. You can't just throw flour in a pan and hope for the best. You need the right ingredients. For a strong job market, those ingredients are education, infrastructure, and basic services. Good education and skills training prepare people for the jobs of today and tomorrow. Proper infrastructure, like roads, reliable electricity, and internet access, helps businesses to grow and create jobs. And basic services like healthcare and clean water ensure people are healthy enough to work and live productive lives. These are not luxuries, they are essential building blocks. So the government and the private sector, they've got a big role to play here. It's about creating an environment where businesses can thrive and want to hire people. It's about investing in our people, making sure they have the skills and support they need. It's a long road for sure. It's not like we can just click our fingers and suddenly everyone has a great job, but focusing on these areas, better jobs, education, infrastructure and services, is absolutely critical. Without this, we're just spinning our wheels, and that poverty crisis will keep on rolling, which is something none of us want to see continue in our beautiful Mzansi. Now, let's talk about something a bit different, but still very important for tackling poverty. South Africa, our beloved country, has taken on a big role on the world stage. As of December 1st, 2024, we hold the presidency of the G20. That's a group of the world's largest economies. It's like being chosen as the captain of the school's debate team, but the debate is about how to make the whole world better, and the team has some serious heavyweights. This is a massive opportunity for South Africa. It's a chance to shine, to lead, and to push for changes that can help us and other countries deal with our economic challenges. One of the big things on the agenda is likely to be our own sovereign debt. You know, the money the country owes. It's a bit like when you've borrowed a bit too much from your mates, and now you're trying to figure out how to pay it all back without having to sell your favorite Bafana jersey. For a country, it's obviously a lot more complicated, but this G20 presidency gives South Africa a platform to talk about these issues, to look for fair ways to manage debt, and to promote long-term economic stability. If we can get our own financial house in order, it makes it easier to fund all those things we need to fight poverty, like schools and hospitals. Climate change will also be a hot topic, as it should be. We'll talk more about that later, but it's a huge factor in poverty. South Africa is expected to keep this on the G20 agenda. We have a chance to push for what they call equitable debt restructuring, basically, making sure that paying back loans doesn't cripple a country's ability to deal with climate disasters or invest in green energy. We can also champion the need to get more money flowing towards climate finance, especially for developing countries. And of course, we'll be pushing for inclusive economic growth, the kind that lifts everyone up, not just a few. This leadership role is a big deal. It's a chance for South Africa to shape global conversations and policies. It's an opportunity to build alliances and work with other countries to tackle these massive challenges. Think of it like hosting a big family meeting. You get to set the agenda, guide the discussion, and hopefully get everyone to agree on some good solutions. It won't be easy, for sure. Leading the G20 comes with a lot of responsibility, but it's a chance for South Africa to punch above its weight and make a real difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wider world, especially for developing nations facing similar struggles. Let's hope we use this chance wisely. Section 5, a global helping hand, the big plan to fight poverty. So while we're working hard at home and taking the lead at the G20, there are also some big global efforts happening to tackle poverty. One of these is a new thing called the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. It sounds quite grand, doesn't it? Like a superhero team. But for ending suffering, this alliance was launched at a G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro just before May 2025, so it's pretty fresh. The main goal is incredibly ambitious, to lift 500 million people out of poverty by the year 2030. That's 500 million people. It's a massive number, a truly life-changing goal if they can pull it off. This isn't just a few countries getting together for a cup of tea and a chat. We're talking about 82 countries signing up, plus big players like the European Union and the African Union. International bodies are also involved, so it's a serious large-scale effort. For South Africa, this initiative could be really important. It provides a framework, a kind of global support system for our own efforts to fight poverty and hunger. It's like knowing there's a worldwide network of people all working towards the same goal, sharing ideas and maybe even resources. That's got to be a good thing, right? And it's not just talk. There's some money being put on the table too. For example, the Inter-American Development Bank has already committed up to $25 billion in financing to this alliance. That's a lot of zeros. Hopefully, this encourages other organizations and wealthy countries to step up as well. Because, let's be honest, tackling poverty on this scale needs serious investment. It needs countries to work together, to share the burden, and to make sure that help gets to where it's needed most. This alliance could be a powerful tool if it's managed well and if everyone delivers on their promises. We've seen big promises before, so the proof will be in the pudding, as they say. The big question for South Africa is how we can best tap into this global initiative. How can we align our national strategies with the goals of this alliance? How can we make sure that any support or resources that come from it actually reach the people who need it most in our communities? It's an opportunity for sure, an opportunity to learn from what other countries are doing, to share our own experiences, and to be part of a global movement that says enough is enough. We can and we must do better to end extreme poverty and hunger. It's a hopeful sign, and we definitely need more of those. Section 6, why our tummies rumble. The real reasons for hunger pangs. We've talked about poverty, and often hand in hand with poverty comes hunger. It's a tough reality for too many people in South Africa and across the continent. But why? Why, in a world that produces so much food, are people still going hungry? Well, it's not just one single reason. It's usually a horrible mix of different problems all piling up on top of each other. It's like a very bad recipe where all the ingredients are things that make life harder. One of the big ingredients in this terrible recipe, especially in some parts of Africa, is conflict. When there's fighting and instability, farms get abandoned, food can't get to markets, and people are forced to flee their homes. Then there's the weather, which seems to be getting angrier and more unpredictable every year. We're talking about extreme weather events. One year it's a terrible drought that shrivels up all the crops, turning fertile land into dust. The next year it might be massive floods that wash away everything, homes, fields, livestock. This kind of extreme weather is a direct hit to food supplies and to the people who depend on farming to survive. It's hard to plan, it's hard to recover, and it just pushes people deeper into hunger and poverty. This is a major concern for South Africa too, as we're definitely not immune to these climate shocks. Of course, poverty itself is a massive driver of hunger. It's a cruel cycle. If you're poor, you can't afford to buy enough nutritious food. If you're not getting enough food, you don't have the energy to work or learn, which makes it harder to escape poverty. It's like being stuck on a very unfair merry-go-round. Even when food is available in the markets, if people don't have the money to buy it, it might as well be on the moon. This affordability issue is a huge problem in communities across South Africa, where food prices can be high and incomes are often very low or non-existent for many families. And let's not forget the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a global shock that hit everyone, but it hit the poorest people the hardest. Lockdowns disrupted supply chains, making it harder to get food to where it was needed. People lost their jobs and their livelihoods, slashing their ability to buy food. Even though the worst of the pandemic might seem like it's behind us, the economic scars are still there for many families. These factors, conflict, crazy weather, poverty, and the pandemic's aftershocks, all combine to create a perfect storm for hunger in many parts of Africa. And these are challenges we are definitely grappling with right here in South Africa as well. Section 7. When the weather goes mad, climate change and empty pockets. We just touched on extreme weather, but let's dive a bit deeper into this climate change thing, because honestly, it's a game changer, and not in a good way, especially for poverty. The scientists have been warning us for years, and now we're really starting to see it. The weather is going a bit mad. One minute it's scorching hot droughts, the next it's floods that could float an ark. And who gets hit the hardest when Mother Nature throws a tantrum? You guessed it, the poorest people. They often live in areas that are more vulnerable to these events, in houses that are less able to withstand storms, and they rely on things like small-scale farming, which is totally at the mercy of the weather. The World Bank says that 1 in 5 people around the world are at risk from these extreme weather events. That's a massive number of people whose lives and livelihoods can be turned upside down in an instant. Think about a small farmer in a rural part of South Africa. Their entire year's income might depend on their crops. If a drought hits or a flood, that's it. Income gone, food gone, savings gone. This makes it incredibly difficult to escape poverty. In fact, climate change is actively pushing more people into poverty and making it harder for those already there to get out. It's like trying to climb a ladder that someone keeps kicking out from under you. So what can we do about it? Well, there are 2 main things we need to focus on. First, we need to get much better at managing these risks. This means things like building better infrastructure that can withstand floods and storms. It means developing early warning systems so people know when a disaster is coming. It means helping farmers switch to drought-resistant crops or find new ways to make a living that aren't so vulnerable to the weather. It's about adaptation, about learning to live with the changes that are already happening, because some of them are unfortunately already locked in. This is crucial for protecting communities. The second big thing is that we absolutely have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's the stuff that's causing climate change in the first place. This is a global effort, and South Africa has a role to play. As we mentioned, our G20 presidency is a chance to push for stronger climate action worldwide. We need to transition to cleaner energy, make our industries more efficient, and protect our forests and natural spaces. It's a huge task, and it won't be easy or cheap. But the cost of doing nothing is far, far greater, especially for the poorest and most vulnerable people in our society. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's a poverty issue, a justice issue, and a survival issue. Section 8. Counting beans properly. Why good numbers matter more than you think. Now, this might sound a bit boring after talking about global alliances and angry weather, but stick with me because it's super important. I'm talking about data, numbers, statistics. I know, it sounds like homework. But how can we fight poverty if we don't even know exactly who is poor, where they are, and what challenges they're facing? It's like trying to find your way in a new city without a map or GPS. You'll just end up walking in circles, probably getting lost, and definitely not reaching your destination. Reliable data is that map for policymakers. The World Bank has pointed out a pretty big problem here. In 2020 or even later, less than half of all countries had up-to-date household survey data for monitoring poverty. That's like trying to understand a problem with half the information missing. If you don't have good current data, you're basically guessing when you make policies. And guessing is not a good strategy when people's lives and well-being are at stake. We need to know if the things we're doing to reduce poverty are actually working. Are social grants reaching the right people? Are job creation programs making a difference? Without data, it's hard to say. So there's a real need for significant investments in modernizing how we collect this information. We need better surveys, more regular surveys, and we need to be clever about using different data sources together. Technology can help a lot here with things like mobile data collection or using satellite imagery to understand what's happening on the ground. It's not just about counting people, it's about understanding the many different sides of poverty. Not just income, but also access to education, healthcare, clean water and safety. The more detailed the picture, the better we can target our efforts and make sure our resources are used effectively. Think about it. If you're a doctor, you need to diagnose the illness properly before you can prescribe the right medicine. Good data is the diagnosis for poverty. It helps us understand the root causes, identify the most vulnerable groups, and design interventions that really work. It also helps us track progress over time and hold our leaders accountable for results. So while counting beans might not sound as exciting as some other things, getting those numbers right is a fundamental step in the journey to a South Africa where everyone has a chance to thrive. It's the groundwork, the foundation upon which all effective policies are built. Section 9. So what's the plan, Mzansi? Paving a path forward together. All right, we've talked about the problems, the inequality, the joblessness, the hunger, the angry climate. It's a lot, I know. It can feel overwhelming, but the big question is, what's the plan? How do we move forward? How do we build a South Africa that works for everyone, not just a lucky few? Well, there isn't one single magic answer, unfortunately. If there was, we'd have used it already, right? But there are definitely some key things we need to focus on, some important policy directions that can help us get onto a better path for sustainable development. It's about being smart, being focused, and working together. First up, we desperately need inclusive growth. We've mentioned this before, but it's so important it's worth saying again. Growth that only benefits the people at the top is not good enough. It's like watering only the tallest tree in the forest and expecting all the little plants to survive. We need economic growth that creates jobs, reduces inequality, and lifts people out of poverty. This means investing in sectors that can create lots of jobs, supporting small businesses, and making sure that the benefits of growth are shared more widely. It means breaking down the old barriers that stop people from participating fully in the economy. Next, we need to make our communities and our economy less vulnerable to those climate hazards we talked about. This means investing in climate adaptation and resilience, things like better water management, promoting drought-resistant farming, protecting our coastlines, and building infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather. At the same time, we also need to reduce our own emissions intensity. South Africa relies heavily on coal, and we need to transition towards cleaner energy sources. This isn't just good for the planet. It can also create new green jobs and new industries. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for innovation. And finally, we need to keep focusing on improving labor incomes. This comes back to creating better jobs and investing in human capital. That's education, skills, and health. We need to ensure our education system is giving young people the skills they need for the modern economy. We need to invest in infrastructure that supports economic activity, like reliable transport and energy. And we need to make sure everyone has access to basic services. Closing the financing gaps for all this sustainable development stuff is vital. Our G20 presidency is a chance to push for innovative ways to get these funds. It's a long journey, Mzansi, but if we focus on these things, we can start to build a more equal, prosperous, and sustainable future for all.